Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So we're from group 3 and we're going to explain about Obama's presidency, and it's going to be about pivot to Asia and why Asia become the focal point over the Middle East and Europe. Okay, so let us introduce ourselves. My name is Patricia Fafadila.
I'm Gana Sakti Maharashtra.
My name is Hamdi Mansour.
My name is Salma Firdausa.
Okay, so those are the members. And now, what is pivot to Asia? The term pivot to Asia denotes a deliberate change in the United States foreign policy focus as proclaimed by President Barack Obama in 2011 and early 2012. So this transition represented a notable shift in the emphasis of American foreign policy. So it changes a lot within the American foreign policy, especially coming from the previous president, which is his main focus is mostly on Middle East. However, for Barack Obama, he shifted to Asia Pacific area. So the term pivot is frequently employed to depict his transition, although it may not entirely encapsulate the fundamental nature of the strategic realignment that took place. And the Asia pivot policy itself, it often referred to as the rebalance policy. It signifies a shift in the emphasis of US foreign policy from the Middle East region, like what I said earlier, and which was the primary focus from the President Bush that is being explained by the previous group. At first, the pivot was thought to be a response to China's increasing aggressiveness in its immediate vicinity. This aggression includes territorial dispute in the South China Sea, as well as economic advancement in Southeast Asia that have been made possibly by trade-related incentives. And for the research question, we have a question that is, how did President Obama's pivot to Asia strategy aim to redefine US foreign policy priorities and engagement in the Asia Pacific region? As for our theoretical framework, we use the concept of American exceptionalism that we have learned previously. The premise that is that the United States is they want to be seen to be unique, distinct, and pretty much outstanding in comparison to other nations. And this concept is based on the fundamental ideas on which the country was established, including liberty, equality, individualism, and democracy, which are considered to be a higher quality than those of other nations. And the concept of rebalance, like mentioned earlier, rebalance and American exceptionalism are connected to each other in the context of the pivot to Asia, because the rebalancing strategy, which was started by the Obama administration, was out to redirect the attention of the US foreign policy from the Middle East to the Asia Pacific region. So those are the reason why we chose this as our theoretical framework. Next one would be explained by Shakti.
Okay, thank you, for the introduction. So now we go on into the discussion part of our presentation, which is Obama's decision-making process. So, in one of the books that I've read when researching this, a book called Assessing the Obama Administration's Pivot to Asia by Reininger and uh, and friends. Reininger wrote that on the 11th October in 2011, the then former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was the Obama presidency. She wrote an article of Foreign Affairs, and its title was America's Pacific Century. In it, she mentioned that over the decades, the United States had paid immense attention to the conflicts within the Middle East, especially on Iraq and Afghanistan. And she argued that the amount of US resources and especially the energy, the attention that was focused on the Middle East was a terrible mistake on the government's part, and that they should instead refocus their energy and resources to other parts of the world, like Asia Pacific, the Asia Pacific region, for example. And this is exactly what President Obama had in mind during his presidency, because he recognized that in this century, Asia will experience an economic growth like no other region in the world. And on top of that, it is also home to nearly half of the world's population. So, of course, it is in the best interest of the US to make an impression in this region and build a friendship with the countries there. And again, one of the motivation for this shift towards Asia was also because of an economic crisis that they experienced in 2008. But fortunately, China and other Asian banks played a key role in suppressing this crisis by buying American and Western bonds. So during this recession phase, China and the four Asian tigers countries maintain a strong rate in economic growth, seemingly unfazed by the recession ordeal during that time. And because of this, it is predicted at that time, it was predicted that China would become the first economy in 2025. This was a threat to the US first time hearing it, because this will be a great shift from economic center from the west to the east, and could also potentially be a shift towards economic center to the east. And of course, the US doesn't want this to happen because it will be a threat to their hegemony over the world. So, in order for them to mitigate this threat from China, they need to make efforts in three dimensions. First one is economic, military, and diplomatic. In the economic dimension, the US signed a partnership agreement, which is called the the Trans-Pacific Partnership, with 11 states. This includes countries like Australia, Brunei, Chile, Malaysia, Japan, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, and Vietnam. This partnership agreement aims to basically liberate the Asia Pacific economies in a way to prevent China from making the rule of the global economy. And this is to ensure that the US are the ones that write the rules instead of China, and also open new markets for US products. And in the military dimension, the US has increased and strengthened military ties with countries like Vietnam, Japan, and South Korea as part of the LC battle strategy to also deter China's threat. And in the diplomatic dimension, President Obama, as well as other top officials in the government like Hillary Clinton, were all doing high-level visits to Asian countries to strengthen their ties. Even going as far as hosting the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit and attending the East Asia Summit also for the first time in US history. So some of these countries are like Myanmar, for example, where Obama donated 170 million US dollars for them to rebuild their countries, and also countries like Southeast Asian countries like Indonesia, where he made his famous speech in University of Indonesia, and also other countries like Thailand, Cambodia, and all of those before he left office. So these efforts highlight how committed the US is in creating a bond with Asia for its American as well as Asian audiences. So I think that's it for me, my explanation of decision-making process.
And the next is impact and effectiveness of the strategy. Positive impacts. The first, strengthening of the United States alliance with countries in the Asia Pacific region such as Japan, Australia, and South Korea. And the second, strengthening in presence and influence in the region, which is considered a strategy to maintain regional stability and security. And the third is Trans-Pacific Partnerships or TPP. And the fourth, providing new opportunities for U.S. companies to enter fast-growing market. And the negative impacts, the first is neglection of other regions such as Europe and Middle East. And the second, in the Middle East, reduce U.S. focus in contributing in increased instability and encouraging existing conflict. And the third, Russia threats in Europe requires great attention. And the next, China response. China views the pivot strategy as provocative, leading to an increase in its military presence and territorial claims in South China Sea. Uh, and the second China response, this response has fueled regional tension and rise to risk of military conflict. And the third China response, the strategy has paradoxically encouraged China the strengthen in position in the region, contrary to U.S. goals of containing Chinese influence. Overall effectiveness, although the strategy success in strengthening unity and increasing economic engagement, it was not completely successful in containing China rise. And the second, it did not generate significant economic growth for the U.S. in the Asia Pacific region. And the third, there is question about the strategy overall success and whether it was necessary adoption or a move that contributes to regional instability and overlook other important economic opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Salma. So we came to the conclusion. We can conclude that the Obama's administration's pivot to Asia aimed to shift U.S. foreign policy focused on resources towards the Asia Pacific region, driven by its economic rise, Chinese assistance, assist, assistant to as a rival and need to counterbalance Beijing's assertiveness while strengthening alliance with Japan, Korea, and others, and promoting economic engagement like the Trans-Pacific partnerships and strategies focused criticism or neglecting other areas like Middle East and Europe rather than restraining China. It seemed to embolden Beijing's military's build-up and territorial claims, fueling regional trends. Our questions remained about whether the benefits outweigh the risks of instability and missed economic opportunities elsewhere. The pivot reflected the American is forced to adapt to ASEAN's growing prom, um, prominence, but yielded mixed results in bolstering U.S. leadership and um, ma- um, man- managing Chinese rise, highlighting the complex geographical dynamics involved. That was for the conclusion.
All right. That is all from group 3. And I hope you guys can understand better about Pivot to Asia. And thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.